I deliberately hid my wealth disguising myself as a homeless woman outside my mother-in-law's house. Instead of helping me, she spat near my feet. "This isn't a garbage dump," she screamed. I lowered my head, dragged my feet, and walked away. The next day, I returned in a luxury car. But before the story really begins, write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The 10-foot-tall wrought iron gates loomed in front of me, their black bars shimmering under the brutal Los Angeles sun. On any normal day, those gates would slide open automatically, the sensor recognizing the license plate of my gleaming black sedan. The security guard would snap to attention, offer a crisp salute, and greet me with a wide smile, the favored daughter-in-law who always arrived with expensive gifts. Today, everything was different. I stood on the edge of the scorching asphalt wearing a faded oversized t-shirt I had intentionally ruined with too much bleach the night before. In my hand was not the leather handbag worth as much as a new car, but a cheap reusable grocery tote with a broken zipper. Inside were only a few shabby pieces of clothing. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart, not from fear but from the thrill of the act I was about to pull off. My husband David was in Europe on a 2-week business trip. His communication was limited, he was in a mountainous region surveying a potential mining site. It was the perfect opportunity. I needed to know whether the affection from my mother-in-law Eleanor and my sister-in-law Jessica was real, or if they only loved the walking ATM I had become. "Excuse me, Frank," I said softly through the narrow opening in the security booth window. Frank, the usually cheerful guard, squinted at me while sipping coffee from his thermos. It took him a full 5 seconds to recognize my makeup-free face, my hair twisted into a messy, uneven bun. "Mrs. Sterling?" Frank choked on his coffee. He rushed out of the booth, his eyes scanning me from my cheap rubber flip-flops up to my face, which I had deliberately made look puffy and greasy. "Amelia, what happened? Where's your car? Where's Mr. Sterling? Please, just open the gate, Frank." I need to see Eleanor," I said, my voice trembling. The artificial tears I'd applied with eye drops 5 minutes earlier worked perfectly, leaving my eyes red and miserable. Still confused, Frank unlocked the small pedestrian gate. His expression was a mix of pity and suspicion. "Go on in, ma'am. Mrs. Sterling and Jessica are on the back patio having some wine." I stepped inside. My feet felt impossibly heavy as I crossed the perfectly manicured lawn grass whose monthly upkeep cost more than a minimum wage worker's salary. Ahead on the back patio overlooking the swimming pool, I saw them. Eleanor sat in a cushioned rattan chair, dressed in a silk lounge set, a glass of chilled rose resting delicately in her hand. Beside her, Jessica was absorbed in her phone, her manicured fingers flying across the screen as she let out the occasional giggle. Together they looked like a postcard of effortless jet-set tranquility. "Eleanor," I called out. The peaceful scene shattered instantly. Jessica looked up first, her eyes widening in disbelief. Eleanor slowly set her glass down, her perfectly microbladed eyebrows drawing together into a sharp V. "Amelia?" Jessica spoke first. Her tone held no concern, only pure shock, as if a rat had just scurried into her soup. "Oh my God, what happened to you? Did you get mugged? You look homeless." I let the cheap tote bag slip from my hand and hit the marble floor with a pathetic thud. Then I dropped to my knees near Eleanor's feet, deliberately allowing the street grime to stain her beloved Italian marble. "Eleanor, please help me," I sobbed, fully committing to the role. "My business is ruined. The main warehouse burned down 2 days ago. The insurance won't pay, they're claiming negligence. I was scammed by a business partner and the bank seized all my assets this morning." Eleanor jerked her feet away as if I were carrying some contagious disease. Her calm expression tightened into a rigid mask. "What are you talking about? Bankrupt? How is that even possible? Your company makes millions." "It's gone, Eleanor. Everything's gone," I wailed, exaggerating my despair. "My accounts are frozen. The house is in foreclosure. The cars have been repossessed. I have nowhere to go. Loan sharks are after me, they even went to my parents' house in Ohio. I had to take a Greyhound bus just to get here." Jessica stood up and slowly circled me, studying me the way someone might inspect roadkill. She pinched her nose with her bright red nails. Wait, so you're broke? Like $0? Massive debt? Completely broke? I nodded weakly. I only have the clothes in this bag. I don't have a single dollar. I was hoping I could stay here just until David gets back. Does David know about this? Eleanor asked sharply. There wasn't a trace of sympathy in her eyes, only cold calculation. I tried texting him but the messages won't go through. There's no signal where he is. Please Eleanor, just let me stay in the guest room for a week. I'm so hungry. I haven't had a real meal since yesterday. Eleanor and Jessica exchanged a look. Jessica gave her mother a clear signal, a cynical glance that traveled from my limp hair down to my dusty flip-flops. Slowly Eleanor leaned back into her plush chair. She picked up her wine glass, took a measured elegant sip and then looked at me with a stare that sent a chill down my spine. The warm motherly smile she used to wear whenever I transferred her monthly allowance was gone. Stay here. Eleanor repeated in a low terrifying tone. She set the glass down with a sharp clink. Amelia, are you even aware that the maids just finished cleaning this floor? Eleanor snapped. And you come in here with germs from God knows where and have the audacity to ask for the guest room? My heart sank. There it was, the real face finally cracking through the polished facade. Jessica, please, I said softly, reaching for the hem of her designer culottes. She jumped back nimbly as if I were a diseased rat. Don't touch me, Jessica hissed. This is imported silk. If your greasy hands get on it, the dry cleaning bill will be insane. Her eyes then narrowed, shifting from my face to the tote bag on the floor. Mom, don't just believe her. Who knows if she's lying? Rich people who go broke always have a stash somewhere. Check her bag. Maybe she's hiding gold or diamonds while pretending to be a beggar to make us feel sorry for her. Eleanor nodded slowly, agreeing with her daughter's vile suggestion. You're right. Check it, Jess. If she has anything valuable, we can take it as collateral for the food and water she'll probably beg for later. Without a shred of decency, Jessica snatched the bag and dumped its contents onto the marble coffee table. What spilled out wasn't velvet jewelry boxes or stacks of $100 bills, but 3 faded t-shirts, a travel-sized shampoo bottle, a toothbrush with frayed bristles, and a few pairs of underwear I'd deliberately bought at a discount store that morning for this role. A musty smell rose from the pile, clashing sharply with the lavender aromatherapy scent drifting through the luxurious patio. Jessica picked up one of the t-shirts using only 2 fingers, her face twisting in disgust. Oh my God, Mom, look at this. The tag is from Walmart. The fabric feels like one of our dish rags, she scoffed, tossing it back onto the table. Wow, Amelia, you really have hit rock bottom. Where's your phone? Your iPhone 15 Pro Max, the one you bought last month? I reached into the pocket of my sweatpants and pulled out an old Android with a cracked screen and a swollen battery. I sold it for the bus ticket and some food. This was the old gardener's phone. He left it behind. Jessica laughed, a dry grating sound, then turned to her mother. It's legit, Mom. She's officially broke. No wallet, no credit cards, no jewelry. Her wedding ring is even gone. At Jessica's confirmation, Eleanor's entire posture shifted. The feigned weariness vanished, replaced by a hard, unyielding resolve. The mask of the perfect mother-in-law shattered completely, revealing the true face of a predator who had just lost her primary source of income. She no longer looked at me as family but as a liability on a balance sheet. Her voice was as cold as the ice in her drink. So you come here without a penny to your name, with debts chasing you, and you expect us to take you in? You're my family too, aren't you? I whispered, lowering my gaze. When David's company was about to collapse, I injected $3 million without a second thought. When you wanted to renovate this house, I paid the contractor in full up front. I'm just asking for a place to sleep, Eleanor. I'm not asking for money. That was your duty as a wife, Eleanor cut in, her voice rising sharply. Helping your husband and his family is an obligation, a good deed. But now you want to drag your problems into this house? Do you have any idea what would happen to our reputation if debt collectors showed up at our gate screaming? We are a respected family, Amelia. Jessica jumped in eagerly as if she had been waiting years for permission to release her pent-up jealousy over my success. Mom's right. You're just bad luck now. David would be so stressed if he knew his wife was a broke, embarrassing failure. You should have some self-respect and disappear instead of burdening us. I looked from one face to the other. The pain in my chest didn't come from their insults, I had expected those. It came from seeing how quickly they erased every kindness I had ever shown them the moment my supposed wealth disappeared. Money truly was the best filter for revealing a person's character. So, you're kicking me out? I asked quietly, making sure every word burned itself into my memory. Eleanor snorted and made a shooing motion with her hand like someone chasing away a stray cat. We're not kicking you out. We simply can't accommodate a vagrant. This house has standards, Amelia, and you, she added, jerking her chin toward my pile of clothes, no longer meet them. Besides the guest room you used to stay in? Jessica uses it for her handbag collection now. It's full. No space. But it's getting cloudy, Eleanor. It's about to rain, I pleaded, trying one last time. Can I at least sit on the front porch until it passes? Jessica laughed again. This time she lifted her expensive phone and pointed the camera at me. Sure, if you want to be a spectacle for the neighbors. Just remember, don't you dare try to come inside. You'll get my Persian rugs dirty with your filthy feet. Then she did something that made my blood boil beneath my pitiful disguise. She snapped a photo of me kneeling on the floor. A little update for David later, Jessica said with a smug grin. So he knows his wife has turned into a beggar. Maybe it's time he found someone more suitable. Before I could respond, a loud crack of thunder split the sky. Rain poured down suddenly, as if the universe itself were setting the stage for the next act of my humiliation. Eleanor stood and smoothed her silk outfit. Let's go inside, Jessica. It's getting wet out here. Let her clean up her own mess. The two of them strolled back into the air-conditioned house, sliding the heavy glass door shut and locking it right in front of my face. I was left alone on the patio, rain soaking through my clothes, my dignity ground into the stone beneath me. Through the glass I caught sight of someone peeking from behind the kitchen blinds. The rain wasn't just falling, it was a deluge. Within seconds I was soaked to the bone. The thin, worn-out t-shirt clung to my skin, the cold seeping deep into my bones. My teeth began to chatter, not only from the chill but from the fury building inside me as I watched the scene unfolding behind the glass door. Inside, the family room was warm and inviting. A crystal chandelier cast a soft golden glow over everything. Jessica lounged on an imported leather sofa, laughing loudly on a video call, no doubt retelling the story of her disgraced sister-in-law to her socialite friends. Nearby, Eleanor, the same woman who once praised me endlessly after I bought her a designer handbag, was now calmly slicing into an elegant pastry with a silver knife. I knocked on the glass door gently at first, then harder as lightning split the sky. Eleanor? Jessica, please. My voice was swallowed by the roar of the rain, but I knew they could hear me. Jessica turned, irritation written all over her face. She ended her call and marched toward the door. She didn't open it fully, only slid it open a few inches, just enough to stick her heavily made-up face out while the security chain stayed firmly latched. What now, Amelia? She snapped. You're being loud. Your banging is ruining Mom's appetite. A blast of cold air conditioning hit my rain-soaked face, a cruel contrast to the storm outside. Please, Jessica, I begged, my lips trembling convincingly. Just let me wait in the kitchen or the garage. I'm freezing. I haven't eaten all day. I'm getting dizzy. Eleanor appeared behind her, still chewing her pastry. She looked me up and down with a cold, clinical detachment, the same expression she used on panhandlers at traffic lights. Why are you being so dramatic? Eleanor said flatly. It's just a little rain and you're whining. Remember, Amelia, life is a wheel. You were on top, living lavishly, being arrogant. Now God is teaching you a lesson. You should be out there reflecting, asking for forgiveness, not trying to force your way inside and dirty our house with rainwater. I was stunned. The gaslighting was flawless. Arrogant? I repeated quietly, staring straight into her eyes. I was never arrogant, Eleanor. Everything I had I earned. I saved. I used my money to buy this very house. I paid for your family's European cruise. Hey, Jessica cut in sharply, her eyes flashing. Don't bring up the past. That just proves you weren't sincere. And do you really think you got rich on your own? That was David's good fortune rubbing off on you. You're just the wife, a vessel for your husband's luck. If the money's gone now, it means you were the one who couldn't manage it. You wasteful woman. I was speechless. What kind of twisted logic was that? The company had been an inheritance from my father, one I rebuilt from the ground up. David only joined the management team after we were married. But in their eyes, every bit of my success belonged to David and every failure was mine alone. Eleanor, I said softly, reaching for her hand on the door handle. She recoiled as if burned. Don't touch me, she shrieked, wiping her hand against her clothes with open disgust. Listen carefully, Amelia. We're not being cruel, we're teaching you independence. If we help you now, you'll never learn. You'll just keep depending on us. You need to know what it feels like to be poor. It builds character. At least give me some water, Eleanor, I begged, lowering myself as far as I could. Tap water is fine. There's plenty of rain out there, Jessica said with a laugh. Drink that. It's free. Besides, if we let you in, you might get comfortable and bring some disease with you. Who knows what kind of viruses you've picked up living on the streets? Ugh. So gross. Just then I noticed movement behind them in the kitchen. An older woman in a gray uniform hurried forward carrying a tray with a mug of steaming water. It was Maria, the housekeeper. Her lined face was filled with worry, she had clearly heard everything. Ma'am, please have mercy on Mrs. Sterling, Maria said, her voice trembling as she dared to speak. I brought her some warm water. Who told you to interfere? Eleanor roared, her voice cutting through the sound of the rain. She spun around and in one swift motion slapped the tray out of Maria's hands. Crash. The ceramic mug shattered on the hardwood floor. Hot water splashed everywhere, steam rising briefly before fading away. Maria gasped, her frail body shrinking in fear. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm so sorry, she whimpered, bending down to pick up the broken pieces with shaking hands. Get back to the kitchen, Eleanor snarled. If you dare give her food or drink without my permission, I'll dock your pay for 3 months. Maria shot me a quick tear-filled glance, an unspoken apology, before retreating into the service area. My heart ached. Maria, whose monthly salary was less than the cost of one of Jessica's handbags, still had compassion. The two women standing in front of me had none. Eleanor turned back to me, a triumphant smirk on her face. See what you've done? Now my expensive mug is broken because of you. Go away. Stop standing in front of my door like a statue, you're ruining the view of my garden. Jessica, lock the door. Double lock it, Eleanor ordered coldly. Jessica eagerly shoved the door shut. Just before it closed completely, she pressed her face into the narrow gap and whispered, her voice a poisonous hiss. Just so you know, Amelia, we're actually relieved you're broke. David is too good for you. His ex-girlfriend, the senator's daughter, just got back from London. She's beautiful, classy, and definitely not poor like you. You should walk away now before David has to be the one who throws you out. Slam. The door closed. The sound of the deadbolt turning, once then again, cut deeper than the rain ever could. A thick curtain was drawn shut, completely cutting off my view of the warmth inside. I stood there frozen in the downpour. The water streaming down my face was no longer artificial, these were real tears born of white-hot rage. But my performance wasn't over yet. I still had to push them to their absolute limit. I staggered over to a wrought iron bench at the corner of the patio, fully exposed to the rain. I sat down and hugged my knees, letting the storm soak me to the bone, the perfect image of a hopeless vagrant. Hidden in the pocket of my drenched sweatpants, my right hand clenched an old burner phone. The voice recorder had been running since I stepped out of the taxi down the street. Every insult, every lie, the shatter of the mug, all of it was captured in crystal clear audio. But Eleanor still wasn't finished. Suddenly a side door flew open. It wasn't Maria who emerged but two Dobermans, the house guard dogs, snarling as they were released. Frank stood behind them, clearly being forced into it by Jessica, who watched from a distance. The dogs Bruno and Rex charged through the rain toward me, their barking deafening, their teeth gleaming under the garden lights, ready to tear apart any intruder. Jessica stood safely behind the glass, a wide grin stretched across her face as she recorded everything, eagerly anticipating a bloody ending. I froze, holding my breath. My heart felt like it stopped beating, not because I feared being bitten. I had bought and trained those dogs myself when they were puppies. What terrified me was the thought that their natural instincts might be overridden by their new master's commands. Bruno. Rex. Sit, I ordered, my voice steady despite the violent shivering racking my body. Their powerful legs skidded to a halt just 3 feet in front of me. Their noses twitched, cutting through the scent of rain and damp fabric. Slowly their stiff tails lowered. Rex stepped closer, sniffed my wet hand, and let out a soft whine. Bruno followed, licking my filthy knee. They recognized me. These so-called vicious beasts remembered loyalty and affection better than the humans inside that house. Behind the glass, Jessica's smile vanished. She appeared to shout something, and the side door burst open again. This time it was Eleanor, her face flushed with fury, shielded by Jessica, who held an umbrella over her. Useless dogs. Eleanor screamed. Why did you stop? Then her furious glare snapped back to me. And you're still playing games with my pets? Are you trying to bewitch them too? It's not witchcraft, Eleanor, I said, attempting to stand. My legs cramped from the cold and I collapsed back onto the wet stone. See? Even the guard dogs know I'm not a threat. I'm still family. Eleanor marched toward me, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She stopped directly in front of me and looked down as if I were dirt stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Family? Eleanor let out a hollow, humorless laugh. Listen to me carefully, Amelia, Eleanor said coldly. In my dictionary, family means people of equal standing, people who benefit one another and protect the family's dignity. Right now you are nothing more than a vagrant dragging my son's name through the mud. If David knew you had become like this, he would be mortified to call you his wife. I promise I won't embarrass him, Eleanor, I pleaded. I'm just asking to sleep in the back shed. Please. I clasped my hands together, begging with what little pride I had left. It's freezing out here. I'm afraid I'll get sick. And then who would take care of David? Jessica sneered. David can find a new wife in seconds, one who's healthier, richer, and prettier. Who do you think you are, the Queen of England? Eleanor leaned down until her face was inches from mine. Her expensive perfume mixed with the scent of rain, making my stomach turn. Do you want to know my final answer? She whispered. Before I could respond, Eleanor gathered saliva in her mouth and spat directly onto my left cheek. It was warm and revolting. Mixed with the cold rainwater, it slid down my chin. My world went silent. The sound of the storm faded away, and all I could hear was my own heart shattering into dust. This was no longer an act. This was the most primal, degrading insult one human could inflict on another. That's my answer, Eleanor hissed cruelly. This house is not a garbage dump. And you, Amelia, you are nothing but trash that needs to be thrown out. She turned sharply toward the security post. Frank, get her out of here. Now. If she's still on my property in 1 minute, you're fired tomorrow. Frank rushed over, his face drained of color. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sterling. I'm so sorry, he whispered, his voice shaking as he took my arm. His grip was weak, he didn't want to do it, but Eleanor's hawk-like stare gave him no choice. Drag her properly, Eleanor snapped. Don't be so gentle, Jessica added with a laugh. With tears and spit still on my cheek, I let Frank pull me away. My feet scraped across the wet grass and gravel, carving a shallow trail through the mud. I didn't resist. I only stared back at the patio, burning the smug, victorious faces of Eleanor and Jessica into my memory. Frank dragged me all the way to the tall iron gates and released me onto the roadside. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am. I have a wife and kids to feed, he sobbed. It's okay, Frank, I whispered hoarsely. You're a good man. He hurried back into his booth and pressed a button. With a heavy mechanical groan, the massive iron gates began to close. Clang. They slammed shut, sealing me out of my old life. I stood alone on a dark, deserted road. The rain poured harder, soaking my trembling body. There were no taxis, no Ubers, nowhere to take shelter. There was only me, the darkness, and a pain slowly hardening into something else. Cold. Focused. Vengeance. I curled up under a large tree across the street, hugging my knees and fighting to hold back a sob. Then through the roar of the rain I heard the creak of a rusty hinge, not from the main gate but from a small side door used to take out the kitchen trash. Someone slipped out. A figure struggled forward against the wind, holding a black umbrella with one broken spoke. The tattered thing nearly tore from their grasp as they fought the storm. When the person reached the tree where I was hiding, I recognized the wrinkled face soaked with rain. Mrs. Sterling. The voice was a trembling whisper, half sob. Oh dear Lord, how did it come to this? It was Maria, the oldest housekeeper, the woman who had worked for the family since David was in middle school. Her thin body was shaking violently, yet she quickly angled the umbrella over me, letting her own back be drenched by the downpour. Maria. I looked up at her, my eyes burning, and not from acting this time. Seeing genuine kindness in her tired eyes after my own family by marriage had spat on me felt like salt in an open wound. What are you doing here? You'll get in trouble. Go back. I'll be fine. No ma'am, she said firmly. I can't let you freeze to death out here. What they did, it's a sin. She tugged at my arm, trying to help me stand. Her strength was weak, but her resolve was iron. Come with me. We'll use the side gate, the trash gate. The guard won't see us. The camera, there's been broken for a week. I hesitated. If we were caught, my entire charade could collapse. Worse, Maria could suffer the consequences. But the cold had sunk deep into my bones. My lips were turning blue. Finally, I nodded and let the old woman guide me through the darkness. We moved like thieves into my own home, through the small rusty gate, down a narrow alley that smelled of damp trash, and finally to the servants' quarters at the very back of the property. It was a world apart from the main house. The walls here were damp, the paint peeling, the air heavy with neglect. Maria opened the door to her room. It was tiny, maybe 6 by 9 feet, with only a narrow cot, a thin mattress, a rickety plastic wardrobe, and a small dusty fan. Yet in that moment the cramped room felt more luxurious to me than any 5-star hotel suite. Come in, ma'am. Sit on the bed, Maria said softly, locking the door behind us. She grabbed a towel from a hook. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's rough. It's mine. I took it and dried my hair. Maria rummaged through her wardrobe and pulled out one of her own faded dresses. It was old but clean. Change out of those wet clothes or you'll catch a cold, she urged. I'll hang them behind the mini fridge to dry. After I changed, she guided me back onto the cot. Then she carefully unwrapped a small bundle of wax paper. Inside was a half-eaten sandwich and a small apple. Eat this, ma'am, she said, gently pressing it into my hands. It was my dinner. I haven't touched it yet. I stared at the simple food, then at Maria's gaunt face. I knew the rules of this house. The staff wasn't allowed to eat until their workday ended at 9 o'clock. It was only 8. That meant Maria hadn't eaten a single thing all day. What will you eat if I take this? I asked softly. Maria smiled, revealing the few teeth she had left. Oh, I'm fine. I have some crackers. An old woman like me doesn't need much. You're young, you need your strength. Please eat. You'll make me sad if you don't. The tears came immediately. Real ones this time. I sobbed as I ate the sandwich. It was plain and cold, but it tasted like the finest meal in the world, flavored with pure kindness. Maria rubbed warming balm into my icy feet, murmuring quiet prayers as she worked. Be patient, ma'am, she whispered. God sees everything. The wheel is always turning. Right now they're on top. They can step on people. But who knows? Tomorrow they may be the ones needing your help. Her simple words pierced my heart. Maria didn't know that tomorrow was going to be very literal. Maria, I'm so sorry for causing you trouble, I said between sobs. It's no trouble, she replied gently. A long time ago when my son had leukemia and I couldn't afford the hospital bills, you were the only one who secretly gave me a thick envelope of cash. I've never forgotten that, ma'am. Mrs. Sterling wanted to fire me back then for taking too much time off to be with him. I froze. I had almost forgotten that moment myself, a small impulsive act of kindness I'd long buried in my memory. And now in my darkest hour it had come back to save me. As the night wore on, the rain finally eased. Maria laid out a thin mat on the cold cement floor for herself. Maria, please sleep on the bed with me, I begged. Oh no. Ma'am, she said softly. That wouldn't be right. A boss shouldn't sleep with her help. I'm fine down here, it's cooler. Within minutes her breathing became slow and steady. I lay awake staring at the cobwebbed ceiling. Sleep was impossible. The burning rage inside me had cooled into something sharper, calculated, precise. I reached for my burner phone. It still worked. When I turned on the screen, a new message was waiting. From Victoria, my personal assistant and most trusted employee. Mrs. Sterling, the targets have taken the bait. Eleanor has just emailed confirmation for a $5 million loan from our shell financial company using the deed to her residence as collateral. She's requesting the funds be released tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. A faint smile curved my lips in the darkness. So foolish. Desperate to preserve her lifestyle, Eleanor had borrowed from what she believed was a legitimate lender, never realizing it was a subsidiary I owned created for one purpose, acquiring distressed assets. My thumbs flew across the cracked screen. Have the Rolls-Royce Phantom ready. Bring all original documents. Pick me up tomorrow at 8 a.m. at the coordinates I'm sending. Dress impeccably. We're going to put on a show. After sending the message, I turned off the phone and hid it away. I closed my eyes, imagining Eleanor's face the next morning when she discovered who truly held her financial lifeline. Just as I was about to drift off, heavy footsteps approached the servants' quarters and stopped right outside Maria's door. The doorknob began to turn. My heart lurched. I held my breath and pressed myself into the thin mattress. On the floor, Maria went rigid, her eyes wide with terror, fixed on the flimsy wooden door. The knob jiggled again, harder this time. Maria, are you deaf? Jessica's shrill voice cut through the silence, muffled but unmistakable. I squeezed my eyes shut. If she came in and found me, the humiliation would be unbearable, and Maria would be fired without a second thought. Yes, Miss Jessica, Maria called out, her voice raspy, carefully pretending she'd just woken up. I was sleeping. Don't forget to skim the pool before Mom wakes up. Some leaves fell in during the storm. If she sees even one leaf, I'm docking this month's pay for my new skincare routine, Jessica snapped from the other side of the door. Yes, Mississippi. Right away. There was a brief silence. Then footsteps retreated, accompanied by muttered complaints about lazy help. I released a long, trembling breath. Safe, at least for tonight. Morning sunlight streamed through a crack in the vent, pulling me from sleep. I checked the burner phone. 6:30 a.m. time to go. Maria was already gone. On the small table sat a mug of warm tea and a couple of granola bars beside a note scrawled on a scrap of paper. Ma'am, I had to start work. Please eat this. Don't leave until I give you the all clear. My chest tightened with warmth. In that cold, magnificent house, this tiny, cramped room was the only place that had felt like home. I ate quickly, then smoothed my worn clothes. I couldn't leave through the door. Instead, I slipped out the back window, which opened onto a public footpath behind the exclusive neighborhood. At exactly 8 a.m. I walked down the alley toward the coordinates I'd sent Victoria, the parking lot of a quiet convenience store about a quarter mile from my in-laws' gate. The contrast was striking. Parked among ordinary commuter cars was an obsidian black Rolls-Royce Phantom. A uniformed chauffeur stood beside the rear passenger door. When he saw me approaching in ragged clothes and flip-flops, he didn't hesitate or flinch. He bowed a perfect 90 degrees and opened the heavy door. "Good morning, Mrs. Sterling," he said respectfully. I slipped into the soundproof cabin, the scent of premium leather and the cool blast of air conditioning washing over me like a blessing. Across from me sat Victoria, composed and elegant, a tablet resting on her lap, dressed in a sharp gray power suit. "My God, ma'am," she gasped, taking in my appearance. "You're truly committed. I almost didn't recognize you. You smell." "Sorry, ma'am. A little ripe." "Save your sympathy, Victoria." "Report," I said coldly, reaching for the tote bag with my change of clothes. The car's privacy shades were already drawn. Victoria handed me a thick red folder. "As you predicted, Eleanor applied for the $5 million loan. But our audit team found something else this morning. A twist." I paused mid-button on my white silk blouse. "What is it?" "Page 3, Victoria said, pointing to a flow of funds chart. "Eleanor and Jessica's lavish lifestyle isn't funded by the late Mr. Sterling's business. That company has been operating at a loss for 2 years." My eyes widened as I scanned the figures. "Then where is Jessica getting the money for all those Hermes bags?" "From Ryan," her husband, Victoria replied with a knowing smirk. "Ryan is the head of finance at one of your regional subsidiaries. Our internal audit uncovered a discrepancy of roughly $20,000 a month being funneled into a personal account under Jessica's name." My blood boiled. They weren't just insulting me, they were stealing from me. Jessica had been mocking my supposed poverty with money her husband was siphoning from my own company. The irony was suffocating. "Excellent," I hissed. I finished slipping on a limited edition black blazer, fastened my diamond earrings, and put on oversized sunglasses. I carefully folded Maria's old dress and placed it into a gold paper bag. "And the deed to Eleanor's house?" I asked. "It's in our hands, ma'am," Victoria said smoothly. It was a high-interest bridge loan she agreed to without reading the fine print. And because she requested instant disbursement, I was able to set the first payment due today. That predatory clause means if she defaults, the house is automatically seized. I smiled, satisfied. It was ruthless perhaps, but spitting on a starving person was far crueler. I was simply playing their game by my own rules. "Prepare a termination letter for Ryan," I ordered, spritzing myself with Chanel No. 5. "We're about to have a family reunion they'll never forget." "Right away, ma'am." Victoria hesitated. "One more thing. A text just came through on your old phone, from David." I grabbed the burner phone. There it was. A single message from my husband. "David. Amelia, Mom just called me on a satellite phone. She said you showed up making a scene and telling lies. She claims you cheated on me and ran off with another man until you went broke. Where are you? Stop embarrassing the family. Go back to Ohio and leave my mother alone." My hand trembled, not from fear but from a surge of pure rage. Eleanor had already rewritten the story. And my husband, the man I loved, had believed her without even asking for my side. "Drive," I said flatly to the chauffeur. "And ram the gate if you have to." The Rolls-Royce purred to life, gliding out of the parking lot, carrying the Queen back to her castle to deal with the traitors inside. But as we turned onto the main road leading to the house, we saw a crowd gathered at the gate. An ambulance sat there with its lights flashing. Victoria checked her phone, her expression tightening. "Ma'am, it looks like there's been an incident at the house." The Rolls-Royce crept forward, gently parting the cluster of curious neighbors. A soft, polite honk made them step aside. Parked directly in front of the gate was an old battered ambulance, its rear doors thrown open. My heart slammed against my ribs. Had Eleanor suffered a heart attack? But when we stopped, the sight before me made my blood run cold. It wasn't Eleanor. It wasn't Jessica. It was Maria. The old woman lay frail and pale on a stretcher, an oxygen mask strapped to her face. Her chest rose shallowly. Beside her, Jessica stood with her hands on her hips, jabbing an accusatory finger at the paramedics. "Can you hurry it up?" she screeched. "You're blocking the driveway. My friend is coming over for brunch. It's just a maid who fainted because she skipped breakfast." So dramatic, calling an ambulance and making a scene. On the porch Eleanor fanned herself, her expression one of pure irritation. Honestly, can someone deal with this? I don't want my house roped off like a crime scene. If she's going to die, she can't do it here. It's bad luck. Enough, I said quietly. I turned to Victoria. Handle the hospital administration. Get her the best VIP suite. I want a specialist assigned to Maria immediately. Money is no object. Yes, ma'am, Victoria said, already stepping out of the car and running toward the paramedics. I took a slow breath, adjusted my sunglasses, and opened the door. The sharp click-clack of my Christian Louboutin heels against the asphalt cut through the air like a command. The murmuring crowd fell silent. Heads turned. The presence of the car, my clothes, my posture, everything about me radiated authority and wealth. Even Jessica stopped mid-rant, her mouth falling open as she stared at the woman stepping out of the black Rolls-Royce. She squinted, trying to recognize the face hidden behind oversized sunglasses and flawless makeup. Excuse me, she said, her tone suddenly polite. Who are you? If you're here about a charity donation, we're a bit busy. We have a sick maid. I didn't answer. I walked past her as if she were nothing more than a lamppost. I reached Maria's stretcher just as the paramedics were lifting it into the ambulance. I gently took the old woman's cold hand in mine. Hang in there, Maria, I whispered. You're going to be okay. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at me confused. Then a single tear slid down her cheek. She probably thought she was dreaming. After the ambulance doors slammed shut and sped away, carrying the only decent human being in that house, I turned to face Eleanor and Jessica. They stood side by side, now utterly stunned. Thank you for calling an ambulance, I said evenly, even if your intentions were vile. Jessica frowned, a spark of recognition flashing in her eyes. Wait, that voice? Slowly, deliberately, I removed my sunglasses. I met their stares head-on, steady, unflinching. No tears. No fear. Jessica's face drained of color. The fan slipped from Eleanor's hand and clattered to the ground. Amelia? Jessica stammered, stumbling back. Her eyes swept over me, from my perfectly styled hair to my polished shoes. How, what are you? But you were a beggar. You were broke. Eleanor's shock twisted instantly into red-faced fury. Her calculating mind spun a story of its own. She lunged forward, a trembling finger stabbing the air inches from my face. Oh, so this is your game now, Eleanor shrieked, her voice rising to its familiar grating pitch. You lied to us. You pretended to be poor, and now you show up in a luxury car. You must have found some rich old man to be your sugar daddy, or did you sell yourself just to rent that car and flaunt it in our faces? The neighbors who lingered began to whisper. This was better than reality television. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Sugar daddy? Selling myself? I said coolly. Your imagination is as filthy as your soul, Eleanor. Don't deny it. Jessica screeched, her jealousy bursting at the sight of my handbag, worth far more than anything in her closet. How else could someone begging for scraps yesterday be riding in a Rolls-Royce today? Dirty money, that's how. You were trying to scam David, weren't you? Bleed him dry for your disgusting lifestyle. David's money? I stepped forward, forcing them back onto their own porch. Let's talk about money, Eleanor. Jessica. But not out here. It would be a shame if the neighbors found out this irrespectable family is built on lies and death. How dare you? Eleanor screamed, her hand flying up to slap me. I caught her wrist midair with a swift, instinctive motion. My grip was iron, fueled by everything I had endured. Don't you ever touch me again, I hissed, my face inches from hers. Your hands are too dirty. Yesterday you spat on my face while I begged for water. Today, I promise you, you'll be the one begging me for it. I flung her hand aside, sending her stumbling into Jessica. Inside, I commanded, pointing to the open front door. We'll settle this in there. You have guests waiting for you in the living room. Guests? Who? Jessica shrieked hysterically. How dare you? Ignoring them, I strode into the luxurious house, the house I had purchased with my own hard-earned money. In the living room, seated on the leather sofa where Jessica usually sprawled, were two men in immaculate suits whom Victoria had quietly let in through the side door. One was my corporate notary. The other was the most formidable divorce attorney in Los Angeles. On the coffee table, between them sat a small open briefcase neatly stacked with cash beside a green folder stamped asset seizure. Eleanor and Jessica rushed in behind me, breathing hard. The moment their eyes landed on the money, the fury on their faces melted into something far uglier, raw, unfiltered greed. "What is that money?" Eleanor asked, her voice suddenly syrupy, her fingers twitching as if she might reach for it. "Amelia, is this for us? An apology?" I lowered myself into a single armchair, crossing my legs with calm precision, studying them like a queen addressing insolent subjects. "Sit down," I said coolly. "And prepare yourselves. The next 5 minutes will be the worst 5 minutes of your lives." Eleanor and Jessica sat stiffly, their eyes glued to the open briefcase. Their hunger for money had completely eclipsed any remaining shame or pride. Eleanor cleared her throat, attempting to reclaim authority. "What is this about Amelia and the money? If this is a bribe to make us forgive your insolence yesterday, I suppose the amount is acceptable." Jessica nudged her mother, eyes glittering. "She's right, Mom. Amelia probably realized she went too far with that little prank." "That's all it was, right, Amelia? A test? You really fooled us." I stared at them, my expression flat. "Shut your mouths. I didn't give you permission to speak." The word silence didn't need to be said. Jessica looked ready to protest, but one glance at the two stone-faced men beside me made her shrink back into the sofa. "Allow me to introduce you," I continued, gesturing to the man on my right. "This is Mr. Hayes, my company's notary. And to my left, Mr. Thompson, my lead counsel." "Your company?" Jessica scoffed under her breath. "What, did you open a food truck?" I ignored her and nodded to Mr. Hayes. The older man opened the green folder and removed a thick, official-looking document. "Mrs. Eleanor Sterling," he said in a deep, authoritative voice, "according to our records, yesterday afternoon you digitally signed a loan agreement with Sterling Capital Ventures for $5 million using the deed to this property as collateral. Is that correct?" Eleanor's face paled. The shock of exposure flickered in her eyes. "Yes, that's my private business." "What of it?" "It's a legitimate loan. I can afford the interest. David will help pay it off." "What does this have to do with you?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "The connection, Eleanor, is this: I own Sterling Capital Ventures. I am the sole shareholder. And I am the chairwoman of the board." Eleanor's eyes nearly popped from their sockets. Her mouth fell open, but no sound came out. Jessica stared at me as if I'd grown a second head. "Liar!" she screamed. "That's impossible," Jessica snapped. "You're just a housewife whose only job is shopping. David is the one who works hard." I let out a soft chuckle. "David?" I repeated calmly. "David is my employee, Jessica, an operations director on a salary I personally approve. The mining company he works for belonged to my father. The finance company you borrowed from is my subsidiary. Even that boutique where you're always running up a tab? I'm the majority shareholder." The air in the room grew thick and suffocating. Cold sweat beaded at Eleanor's temples. "So, you were the one who gave me the loan?" she stammered. "Precisely," I replied lazily, twirling an expensive pen between my fingers. "And as the owner, I have the right to review a debtor's risk profile. Given that you spat on the company's owner yesterday when she asked for a glass of water, I'd classify you as a high-risk borrower with a profoundly defective moral character." I turned to my lawyer. "Mr. Thompson, what is the status of Clause 45 on page 12 regarding unilateral cancellation?" Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses. "It can be executed immediately. Mrs. Sterling, if the lender determines there is bad faith or asset manipulation by the borrower, the loan is voided and a penalty equal to 200% of the loan amount becomes payable in cash within 24 hours. Failure to comply results in automatic seizure of the collateral. 200%? Eleanor cried, clutching her chest. $10 million? Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? That, I said coolly, is not my problem. You have 24 hours or, I glanced around the opulent living room, you and Jessica will vacate this house immediately. As we speak, the deed to this property is being transferred to my company. You're evil, Amelia, Jessica screamed. Pure evil. She lunged at me, but my personal security guard, stationed quietly by the door, intercepted her instantly. Sit down, Jessica, I snapped, my authority filling the room. I'm not finished with you. She was shoved back onto the sofa, breathing hard. What else do you want? She sobbed. What more can you possibly do? I pulled a brown envelope from my bag and tossed it onto her lap. Open it. With trembling hands, Jessica did as told. Inside were photographs and bank statements. The flush drained from her face, leaving it deathly pale. Your husband Ryan, I said slowly, deliberately. Head of finance at the Phoenix branch. Our audit came in this morning. For the past 2 years, there's been a suspicious transfer of $20,000 every month into your personal account. Total embezzlement, $480,000. Eleanor whipped her head toward her daughter. Jessica, what is she talking about? I cut in sharply. Your monthly allowance. The Hermes bags. The spa days. The Aspen trips. All of it was funded with money your husband stole from my company. Jessica broke down completely, her body shaking as sobs tore out of her. Amelia, please, don't call the police, Eleanor pleaded. Ryan will go to prison. And why shouldn't he? I asked, rising slowly and circling the sofa like a judge delivering a verdict. Yesterday, when I begged for nothing more than shelter from the rain, what did you say? Don't come in. You'll dirty the Persian rug. And now you want me to protect your thieving son-in-law from the consequences of his own crimes? I stopped behind Eleanor's chair and leaned close, my voice a cold whisper in her ear. Do you remember your spit, Eleanor? I can still feel it burning on my cheek. Consider this my response, served through the law. I pulled out my phone and typed calmly, deliberately, right in front of them. Then I held the screen up so Jessica could see it clearly. To Head of HR. Terminate Ryan Thompson for cause. Effective immediately. Forward all evidence to the Phoenix Police Department. File criminal charges. Amelia, no. Don't send it. Jessica screamed, lunging for my phone. Too late. My thumb tapped the screen. Sent, I said flatly, slipping the phone back into my bag. Enjoy the consequences. Before Jessica could even catch her breath, the phone on the coffee table began to vibrate violently. Ryan's name flashed across the screen. She stared at it in horror, then at me, then back at the phone. Her hand shook as she answered and put it on speaker. Ryan's voice came through, panicked, cracked with the wail of sirens in the background. Jessica, can you hear me? The police are at my office. They have a warrant. This is because of you, your insane lifestyle. You pushed me into this. Are you happy now? Are you happy now? No. Jessica screamed, hurling the phone onto the carpet. She clamped her hands over her ears, sobbing uncontrollably, then slid off the sofa and collapsed onto the floor, shaking, utterly broken. Eleanor stood, frozen, her face drained of all color. She looked from her devastated daughter to me, still seated, still composed. You're a monster, she whispered, pointing a trembling finger at me. You destroyed my family. Correction, I said calmly, setting down my teacup. I didn't destroy anyone. I simply turned on the lights. And when the lights come on, all the rats start scurrying. Rats? Eleanor shrieked, surging to her feet. In a burst of fury, she grabbed a crystal vase from the table, raising it to throw. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat loudly. Mrs. Sterling, I must advise you that committing physical assault in front of legal counsel and a notary will add several felony charges to your already serious legal situation. Eleanor's arm froze midair. The vase trembled in her grasp, then slipped from her fingers and rolled harmlessly across the thick carpet. The fight drained out of her completely. Give it back, she whispered, her voice cracking. Amelia, please. Call off the police. Pay off Jessica's debt. Let us stay here. I promise, I swear, I'll treat you like a daughter again. I'll make David be good to you. Her words hung in the air, hollow and desperate. I laughed, an honest bitter laugh at the sheer desperation of her offer. Eleanor, don't you get it? I said, stepping closer. I don't need you to treat me like a daughter. I paused, then added quietly, and David. I reached into the open briefcase, lifted a thick stack of $100 bills, and fanned them slowly in front of her face. This money? I had set it aside as your anniversary gift next month. An entire briefcase just for you. Then I let the bills slip from my fingers. They fluttered to the floor at her feet like fallen leaves. But after what you did yesterday, this money will be donated to a nursing home. One you may very well end up in someday. Those words shattered her. Eleanor's face turned a sickly purple. Her eyes bulged as she gasped for air, one hand flying to her chest. Mom. Mom, what's wrong? Jessica cried from the floor. Eleanor's body suddenly went rigid. Her eyes rolled back, her legs buckled, and to a thump, she collapsed onto the pile of money. Her body convulsed once, then went still, her breathing ragged and uneven. Mom. Jessica screamed, scrambling toward her. Mom, wake up. Please, don't leave me. Chaos erupted around us. My legal team moved instinctively, alert and composed. I looked down at my mother-in-law's motionless body and felt no grief, only a vast hollow emptiness. This was how pride ended, brought down by the very money it worshipped. Victoria, I said calmly. Yes, ma'am. She appeared at once. Call another ambulance. Not the VIP one, use the standard city service. Bill their insurance if they have any. Make sure Jessica goes with her. Once they're off this property, lock the gates, change every access code, and destroy anything that belongs to them. Yes, ma'am. As my security team moved in to assist, Eleanor, tires screeched in the driveway. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps pounded toward the house. Mom? Jessica? What happened? David burst into the room, still wearing dusty field clothes from the mining site. He froze in the doorway, eyes widening at the scene, his mother unconscious on the floor, his sister hysterical, and me standing upright, composed like an executioner awaiting the final command. He turned to me, his expression a storm of confusion, fear, and anger. Amelia, he said, his voice low and shaking. He strode past his mother and stopped directly in front of me. What did you do to my family? What did I do? I repeated, meeting his gaze without flinching. The better question, David, is what your family did to me when I came to them for help. He grabbed my shoulders. My mother is an old woman, Amelia. Whatever she did, she didn't deserve this. You're my wife, you're supposed to respect her. He shouted. Then he turned sharply. And Jessica, why is Ryan being arrested? Have you lost your mind with all this money? I shoved his hands away. Respect? I let out a cold laugh. Listen carefully, David. Use those ears that have only been hearing your mother's poison. I pulled out the burner phone, tapped the screen, and hit play, turning the volume all the way up. Eleanor's voice filled the room, sharp and venomous. This house is not a garbage dump. And you, Amelia, you're nothing but trash. The words were followed by the wet, revolting sound of her spitting, then Jessica's mocking laughter. David's face went blank. That must have been because she was shocked, he stammered. She was emotional. She spat on me, David, I cut in coldly. Your mother spat in your wife's face while I was begging for a glass of water. And you? I continued. When I texted you for help, you told me to go home and stop embarrassing the family. You believed her over me. David said nothing. His shoulders sagged, his gaze dropping. Amelia, we can talk about this, he pleaded softly. Please just call off the police. We can start over. I'll talk to Mom. It's too late, I said flatly, signaling to Mr. Thompson. The lawyer stepped forward and handed David a blue folder. "What's this?" David asked, his hands trembling. "Divorce papers," I replied. "And a termination letter?" He looked up at me stunned. "Termination," I confirmed. "Who do you think owns the company you work for, David? Who pays that six-figure salary that lets you buy your mother expensive jewelry while telling your own wife to be frugal?" I stepped closer. "It's my company. My father's legacy. You work for me." I stayed silent all these years to protect your ego as a husband, but today that ego died along with your mother's respect. David collapsed onto the sofa, his legs giving out beneath him. The truth had finally broken him. "As of today, I continued your job, your car, your apartment, and all company credit cards are revoked. You have 1 hour to pack your personal belongings. After that, anything left behind will be destroyed." Without waiting for a response from the silently weeping man, I turned and walked out of the house for the last time. My Rolls-Royce was already waiting. Victoria held the door open. "To the hospital, ma'am?" "To check on Mrs. Sterling?" she asked. "No," I said as I got in. "Take me to the hospital where Maria is. Upgrade her to the presidential suite. When she's recovered, arrange her passport and visa. I'm sending her on a first-class trip to Hawaii next month. Then buy her a comfortable house in her hometown. She is more family to me than anyone in that house ever was." The car pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I saw David run out after us, shouting my name, but the windows were soundproof. I couldn't hear him, and I never wanted to again. 6 months later, I sat on the balcony of my new penthouse in Singapore, sipping chamomile tea and gazing out at Marina Bay Sands. Life felt light. That morning, Victoria had brought me news from Los Angeles. Eleanor had suffered a permanent stroke, leaving her partially paralyzed. With the house seized and her assets gone, she now lived in a small, cramped apartment on the outskirts of the city. Jessica's fate was even worse. Her husband had been sentenced to 5 years in prison, and with no skills beyond spending money, she was now working 2 minimum-wage jobs just to survive. David, stripped of his title and wealth, was struggling to find work, his reputation in ruins. And Maria, she had sent me a postcard from Maui the week before. The photo showed her smiling on a sunlit beach, looking happier and healthier than I had ever seen her. On the back of the card were just 3 words. "What goes around